So we're here with Ben from Blackout Orchestra.
Hello.
So we did an interview a very long time ago.
Yeah, I think that was just after the first record came out.
Yes, it was. It was been a lot going on since then.
Oh God. What's happened since then?
Mm-hmm.
So that record happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then another record happened. And that
Mm-hmm.
was I was very excited. Beauty Sleep, it's called. I love that little record. It's a weird little dreamy thing.
Mm-hmm.
The band, I always said the band was kind of a collective, so it would be sometimes a band, sometimes a duo. Well, at a certain point, for now at least, it became a solo thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is, and it was unexpected, but it meant that I had to rethink my whole live thing. So instead of, I didn't want to be just another sad white guy with an acoustic guitar, you know, there's a lot of those. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but so I had to rethink my whole live setup. So I got a drum machine, a cheesy little thing to try to capture some of the beat-oriented things on the last record. And it also meant that I got to, basically I can pack up a guitar in a side bag with a change of underpants and the drum machine and go wherever I want and sleep on anybody's couch. And it's been fun. I've gotten to be a troubadour.
Nice. I love that. So what is coming up for you?
So I'm in a bit of a disjointed period, in a fun way, I say with hesitation. I was writing a record, and it was sort of a pop rock kind of. I wanted it to. I've been going to a lot of shows, a lot of STMV shows, and the feel of a live band, which was never really what I was doing. I wanted to capture something sort of like that, not the same style of music necessarily, you know, but that feel of something being live and raw.
Yeah.
So I started writing this record, and it's sort of a live feeling rock record, and it's sort of your verse chorus kind of very pop in the classical sense. But it's getting into fall and winter now, and I having seasonal depression on top of regular depression. I knew that I would need some sort of lifeline through that. So I bought this cheap little like half-size classical guitar, and I figured I'd write the mopiest record in the world on this little guitar. And that's kind of what I'm doing now, is my little walled-in isolated hermit record as well. So I'm mixing one and starting writing the other sort of at the same time, and it feels very strange going from one to the other, but it's fun. One will be great for spring, and one will be great for winter.
Yeah. That's fun. Very dual personality.
Yeah, well, you know, I think of myself as sort of like the sad bastard type, but when I was touring in the UK recently, and Grace, who was singing with me at some of those gigs, she was like, "You're a really sort of positive person. You're very, like, see the silver lining kind of person."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna ruin my reputation, but I guess so. And someone else had then mentioned it to me as well, and I'm like, well, all right. So I'm like the happiest sad guy. My friend Care, actually, way back in the day when we were playing in my first band, Deep Six, we were doing this little interview with the CBC, and because we were doing an Art Gallery of Ontario thing, and we were a teenage band, but it was acoustic, and so we played this song, and the interviewer said, "Oh, that was really beautiful. What's that called?" And I'm like, "That song is called Hate." She's like, "But it's so pretty." And I'm like, "Well, I guess it's kind of a closet love song." And Care, without missing a beat, is like, "Yeah, Ben's kind of a closet happy person." And I'm like, I guess that kind of sums me up to this day.
Happiest sad boy. I like that. I think that's a very good descriptor for you.
Well, you know, it's not sadness for sadness's sake. It's sadness because you're reaching for more. You know, it's the melancholy of hope.
Yes, I like that. That needs to be like in the footers there.
That's right. That'll be the double record.
Yes.
Of the two. Melancholy of Hope. And side 1 is Melancholy and side 2 is Hope.
I love that. That's amazing. So tell me about your UK tour. I'm sure there were so many experiences.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting because the reaction to me there is exactly the same as it is here, which is like you get 4 or 5 people who are like, "Wow, I really love your songs," or "That really touched me," and then a whole room of people standing there being like, "Who's this pink-haired freak with his beatbox and whatever?" Like, but as long as it's not complete boredom that I'm inspiring, I feel good about that. But it was interesting. I got to play a lot of different places. My label in the UK, Quick Fix Recordings, they program a stage at a festival called the Riverside Festival in Charlbury, which is near Oxfordshire. So he's like, "Come down and play this outdoor festival and we'll book you some gigs around it." So I played the outdoor festival. I played this basement punk rock club in Oxford. I went to Swindon, which is sort of a suburban area, and what seemed like a neighborhood pub for sort of older British guys mostly. And that was the one that I was like, "Oh, show up," and they're like, "Oh, you have to play 2 sets." So I was like, "Okay, so I'm stretching my material. Got it. 2 separate 45-minute sets." And at the end of the second set, they called for an encore, and I'm like, "Well, I guess like old British men are kind of my target audience." Who knew? But so I got to sort of really experience. We played a couple of. They still have HMV down there.
Okay.
So I played a couple of in-stores at HMVs in Bath, where I was staying, and also in Oxford. And so it was a cool run of shows, but it was like 5 shows in 12 days. So I had a lot of time off. I was staying with Lee from Quick Fix in Bath, and Bath is the most beautiful city in the world, possibly. So going for my morning walk, just looking at all this beautiful architecture, and we got to go down to a couple of other towns and really get a good feel for everything. It's the paparazzi.
Yeah. Those old British guys coming for you, Ben.
That's right. You know, I gotta beat them off with a stick.
Well, yeah, you got your target audience. That's awesome. Yeah, so you got to experience the surroundings and the culture a little bit then?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because it's like it's pub culture, and I don't drink, but there's something about the I don't know. They have a history there that we don't have here. I was visiting graveyards with Grace, and we were standing next to graves that were older than this country, and it was like you feel that in just about everything, from the music culture to you know, the stores and venues, the architecture, just everything. You feel that there's a history there that you don't necessarily feel around all the concrete and glass here. I love Toronto, and so I would never leave, but it was really eye-opening to be around something very different.
Yeah. That's, maybe very, like, the duality of it, you know? I like that.
It's because it's big cities, but it's also very pastoral in places and quite next to each other, and you know, you'll have ancient-ish feeling churches, and went to the Roman baths that are ancient, right next to your, Tubi mobile phone store, and it's an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that, and I'm really happy that you had that experience. I remember you telling me that you were gonna go and do this, and I was so excited for you. Like, to just be able to go out there and travel with your music, like that is something that a lot of artists don't get the opportunity to do.
It's hard. I can't imagine with a band, or even when the live setup as a duo, there's having to worry about accommodations and travel and equipment. Carrying amps to another country without a work visa is a little difficult, but the fact that by happenstance, the setup that I'm in now, where everything is just plug in and go, I can do that on a pretty cheap budget and make it worth my while to travel. So it's exciting, and I'm planning more trips in the future.
I love that. So I guess for people who haven't seen you or haven't, experienced you live, hi noobs. Other than the happiest sad guy, how would you explain like your kind of music and vibe?
I mean, the cheap answer is to say like I don't stick to a genre. I just do whatever I feel like at the time. But that's that's my tastes are my tastes. I think when I'm happy, I don't necessarily feel like writing music. I'm too busy being happy.
Mm-hmm.
When I have things to work out, that's when I write music. So it does tend to be somewhat melancholy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's there's a lot of things that I like. I grew up in the punk rock scene, and you wouldn't necessarily call my music punk rock, but there's a certain warts and all factor that I try to keep in there. It's sort of pretty, but it's not. I play a lot of acoustic type nights, and I don't fit in there because I'm grungier than that. And if I play punk rock shows, I don't really fit in there because I'm more stripped down than that. Which is not really on the record. It's very much a full band sound, but live it's very stripped down, but it's not acoustic. I think the best descriptor that I heard for it once was Leonard Cohen at a rave. Just like these sad songs with some beats.
Fair. Yeah. I like that. Because your first record, if I remember right, you had recorded during the pandemic, and you had used an app on your phone.
Yeah.
And the quality was great. Has the process of writing this last album and what you're working on now, has that changed at all?
Yes and no. I still do the same thing. I'm still using an app on my phone for recording because it's the same essentially as if you had a laptop and recording into that. The app that I use is called BandLab, and what's interesting about it is it doesn't have the bells and whistles of your you can't use plugins. You don't have it's very limited what you can do in it, but it records instruments and you have access to MIDI. So it takes a lot of polishing and work and time, and it's the limitations I think kind of feed it.
Okay.
If I had access to everything, infinite choices of sounds and effects and things like that, I think that I could get lost in it. This is very much like there has to be a song at the center of it, and then you sort of build around that with the tools you have.
Yeah.
But it depends too, because the two that I'm working on right now, one was very much like, let's make this as pristine and layered as possible. And then I'm working on this other one now, which is very much, let's try to use no MIDI, no electronic elements, only, a crappy classical guitar. I'm going to use a piano and things like that. But just challenging myself to do the most and do the least at the same time has been interesting. So I try to approach each record in terms of what flavor or character do I want it to have, more than repeating the same process each time, even though I'm using more or less the same tools.
Yeah, for sure. That's I like that you stuck with that, well, because you're signed now and like you're doing all these things, so you would think upgrade the app, But I love that you found something that is part of your makeup now,
Yeah, it's it really is the limitations in every respect, I think, help. I tried to carry that over into the live thing as well, because you can bring a laptop and play all the backing tracks, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I've seen people do that beautifully, but at a certain point, to me, on stage, it would feel like karaoke. You're playing guitar and singing, but everything else, there's bass, drums, etc.
Yeah.
So doing this live thing, I wanted to get purposely a sort of a cheap, limited drum machine and use limited tools for that. So how can I bring dynamic to the live show, but using as little as possible? And I think that it forces you to be more creative in some ways.
Yeah, 100%. Has your inspiration for writing changed?
Yeah, I mean, it changes. It's again also sort of very record to record, because I think in terms of albums.
Yeah.
So like the first record was very much a sort of getting over a breakup record.
Yes, I remember.
The second record was kind of a falling in love record. It sounded actually a little more melancholy than the first record in some ways, but
But you could tell that it was pretty. It was like I found listening to it, it was very much that melancholy and hope that you were just talking about, and it was this like kind of very pretty, beautiful, like love letter to this overall sad feeling, but like in this bright, like hopeful light, if that makes any sense at all. That's kind of the whole overall arcing vibe that I got from it.
That's about right. I think it's a lot of it is very subconscious. The reason it's called beauty sleep as well is like part of what I was trying to capture sound wise was that feeling when you first wake up and like a dream is fading and reality is setting in, but you're kind of stuck between them. You're not sure what's real.
Yeah.
That was sort of the sound I was going for, and at the time I was writing it, I was falling in love, and that love was ultimately doomed. But it's interesting because I think subconsciously I sort of knew it was doomed, but I was still throwing myself into it. And I think that came through.
We do with love, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's you dive in head first and the consequences.
Yeah.
And I if I listen to that record now, I hear all of that. I wasn't necessarily conscious that I was putting that in there, but now I'm like, oh, I get what I was saying now.
Well, yeah, I mean, just, every time you go through that process of falling for somebody, right? Like, I think there's, especially as you get older and the more relationships you have, I think there's like that gut feeling right in the pit there that you're like, this is gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to do it,
Yeah, I think that willingness to be hurt is kind of important in love and in most things in life. Yeah. It's like, there's, people talk about, relationships and what is a failed relationship. And I don't think a failed relationship is a relationship that doesn't last forever. I think that relationships, I look back at every relationship that I've had, except for maybe one, really positively. Like it even if they ended terribly, I think that the feeling what I felt within them was important for my worldview. And I think that in most cases, both me and the other party came out of it better for having experienced those things. So I think that there's a quote that was the only failed relationship is the one that lasts too long. I think that's interesting.
That is very interesting. There's also a spoken word poem that it's online, and I actually really love it, and it's kind of goes through like all the different loves that you have in your life and stuff like that, and like towards the end, and they just kind of refer to this person as love, but like it's like, oh, your first love from like high school, and then it's like the next one and stuff like that, and it's very much at the end it kind of gives you this idea of like, okay, well, I know you're leaving, but leave the door open, so that another one can come in. And it's very interesting because I feel like when you experience enough heartbreak and enough of that feeling of falling in love and what it does add to your life, regardless of how it turns out, you almost get excited to enrich your life with a new person and with a new experience,
Yeah.
Even though you're like, this gonna hurt, this gonna suck, like you just get really excited to be able to share any amount of time with somebody and learn and grow from that experience.
Yeah, I think bad comparison, but it's sort of like listening to music. You know, the more types of music you listen to and the more things you hear, the more you take away from it and maybe put into your own, you know. And I think that that's not that love is all about taking necessarily, but when you're looking at what you get from something, like I think of my last relationship, even though it didn't continue after a certain point, the things that we created together, I'm very proud of, and they taught me a lot about how to care for someone and where to draw my own boundaries.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the relationship before that the first record was about, that person, it ended quite painfully, but that person was a strong-willed person who saw things in a very black and white way, whereas I always see the gray area and always sort of, and they taught me to be a little more stringent about what I will and will not accept, because they were very quick to say what they will and will not accept from the people around them. And I think that that made me a better person for it. And I think every relationship that I've had, I've taken something away from that's made me a better person.
Yeah, and it really does show in all of your music. It does. And I think that's why I really love your songs and your music so much, is that you are not at all scared to like lay those feelings out. And it, to me, honestly, I feel very much listening to your records that like everything that you can get from a relationship, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's there. And like it's something that I haven't really seen other people be able to capture in music.
Interesting. It comes from, I think, a lot from the records I listened to growing up, that were all very personal records for the, you know, each individual artist. And I think that I always sort of looked, I mean, people should go to actual therapy. This is not saying they shouldn't, but I've looked at music and art as therapeutic, as a way to get through things. Several years ago, when my dad died, me and my best friend put together a band, and we called the Dearly Bereft, and we put out a record called Funeral Music that was all about death. And it was a way for me to confront those feelings, but also have something positive come out of it. Similarly with the first Blackout record, where I had gone through this breakup, and it was, you know, a low point in my life, and as I was on my way back up, I was trying to take stock and confront some of those feelings about that. And I think that you have to not worry about what people will think hearing it so much. If you're bringing that aspect to it, that you're doing this for yourself, and to go through that, and whether you then put it out and other people hear it is incidental.
That's very fair. What I guess the main point that I mean is, because you do, like, it is sad, but you have this hopefulness to it. You're hitting this, like, this very matured view on these emotions that I haven't seen other artists do. I've seen other artists do breakup songs where they're like, fuck this person, or I am so sad, or where, like, that vibe very much of like, this sucked and I'm very sad, but here's what I learned from it, and this is the beauty of it, is so inherent in your music, that I think it's something that is so of its time, you know, and so needed for where I really hope humanity's going.
Thank you. I think that comes from some of that seeing the gray area thing, where you can't dismiss people as being all bad. I mean, that's within reason. There's pretty terrible people out there, but you also have to be willing to accept that you're the asshole sometimes. And I've 100%. Been the asshole in relationships, even, you know, 50-50. Sometimes I'm more the asshole, sometimes I'm a little less the asshole, but I've you know, to see when you're hurt by someone, you've also hurt people, so you try to, I don't know, take a fair view of everything as much as you can, so you can feel the emotions you're feeling, but also do that without vilifying the other.
Yeah.
Which I think is, I think everybody comes to eventually, but I think it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. So before we do wrap up, is there anything you want to share with the general public?
Make art. But also go to therapy. But also make art.
Make art and go to therapy. I like that. Amazing. All right, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you for having me.
And letting me know what's going on.
My pleasure.
Amazing. All right, say bye.
Bye.